Hey, this is Matt from Atomic Bytes. I want to talk to you today about getting a new project, a new expo project set up for universal development. And one of the first things you're going to want to do is configure it for linting with ESlint and Prettier with your preferences for your code styles. And so let's just get started. So npx expo CLI init, we'll call it demo, do a blank TypeScript project, and we'll let this guy finish. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to install ESlint. So if you go to eslint.org, they have a getting started guide, and we'll just go through this and we'll set up our ESlint config file, and let's see, demo. Let's do I'm going to add ESlint as a dev dependency. And now that we have that, we can do yarn ESlint init. Yep, we'll check it with JavaScript files, React. Yes, we do use TypeScript, and we're going to also check Node since we're building a universal application. I always suggest doing a JavaScript file here. You'll be able to use comments and any other JavaScript you may need to use in your config, which is great. Since I'm using yarn, I'm going to say no here. It throws a bunch of errors, but I think that's fine. I just need to also, I say that's fine. Sounds like it's not fine. Well, here's what we'll do then. Let's do it again. All the same options except for we'll just let it install with npm. I'll later remove the npm lock file. So you only really want one lock file in your project, yarn, whether your team is using yarn or npm. You can use either one. I've been using yarn lately, so I'm just going to stick with that. But in this case, bootstrapping an application, not sure why I got all those errors, but I think it'll be better here when I let it install it. I'll leave that in the recording because who knows, users might run into the same thing. Okay. So like I mentioned here, there's a package lock and a yarn lock. I don't want the package-lock.json. I'm going to run yarn again though, just so that it looks through the package.json and adds. You still want to add the dependencies inside your yarn lock file, so it should do it for me. Anyways, so let's see what we've got here. Let me just open this up in VS Code. So we've got an ESlint RC file. Great. It's already got some. We should be able to run this at this point. So let's give it a go. And perfect. We've run lint on the folder that we're in, and it's already got one warning. We'll go take a look at that in a minute. But we're also going to want to go ahead and add npm script, so we don't have to type that all the time. So we'll do that. We'll add one called lint. We'll tell it to run ESlint, and let's tell it which files we want it to lint, where it can find it. So let's see. So I think this is a glob. We can tell it tsx So in our project, we only want our linter. We want it to recursively look through the folder structure, looking for file extensions .js, .ts, and .tsx. Those are the only ones we're interested in. And so now you can just run yarn lint, or if you're using npm, npm run lint. You can type yarn run lint, and yarn run is not necessary. Let's go ahead and get rid of this one warning that is showing up over here. So let's see, in the app, actually, I think you can just command click it, and yep, sure enough, you could tweak your rules if you like. So this is telling us TypeScript ESlint explicit module boundary types. You could click on that and go look at the. We'll open it up real quick. So it's nice, you can get some information on the rule details and how to get around it, or we could decide as a team we want to disable this rule. We could go into our ESlint config and say, no, we don't want to follow that rule. In this case, we'll just go ahead and say, okay, let's just give it a return type. This is a React application, so our app is going to be a JSX element, and now we're all happy. So that's great. So the next thing we're going to want to do is get set up with Prettier. And let's see. I don't think Prettier has a init. It's something like, we used a command to expo CLI init to set up the expo project, and we used an ESlint init argument to set up our configuration, but I don't think one like that exists for Prettier that I'm aware of. So we'll just actually let's use yarn. So we'll add Prettier, ESlint config Prettier. I think what that does is take out some of the ESlint rules that Prettier is going to take care of for us. And then we'll add the plugin for Prettier so we can wire it up with ESlint. All right, now that those dependencies are installed, we can go into our ESlint RC file. Let's tell it, we'll tell it to install those, and you can see right away it's already complaining about the white space based on our, I guess, the default Prettier config, which we're going to add our own here in a second. But I think my VS Code is already set up to save. So when I saved it, it formats on save. So you can go into your VS Code settings and change that if you like it or don't like it. But that's only going to do the file that I'm in. Now there's other files. Like now if we run our yarn lint. So now we're seeing Prettier errors in the output. Let's see, before we deal with those, let's add our own Prettier config for what we want to use. So let's just create a .prettier rc.js file. And let's see. Gonna find some rules I've used before and paste them in here. So we'll set the print width to 120, no semicolons, like single quotes, put a trailing comma, and I like a tab width of 2. So we'll run yarn lint again. Still got a lot of errors, of course, so we didn't deal with those. So what you can do is a lot of times ESlint can just fix automatically some errors if it's just a formatting issue. So what you usually do is append a -- fix to your ESlint command, and let's see what that does for us here. So you can see it put it in there, and I think it took care of them all. So we're good to go. So in fact, here we'll just see if I'll mess up one of these. So I have my VS Code set to save it, but I think there's a way to actually save without formatting. So here I'm intentionally saved the file with an issue just so we can watch that the yarn lint dash fix will. Another thing I recommend doing is setting up lint staged a pre-commit hook to run ESlint for you, so that you don't ever inadvertently check in some commit that has failing lint in case you forgot to run it locally or whatever. So if you, I know on the Prettier documentation, I noticed they had some instructions for setting this up. So this npx mrm lint staged, let's run that and see what happens. Okay, so it looks like that modified our package.json. So let's take a look at that. You'll see lint staged and Husky were added as new dependencies. So these are things it'll use. So Husky is a tool that I guess helps with the pre-commit hooks. So this is just saying that before you commit, run lint staged, and then we configure lint staged. And in this section of the package.json, I think as we did before, we're going to want to edit this to TS files in it and TSX files. The -- cache is a way to tell ESlint to only check the changed files, so it won't lint everything, just the files that you've since last time, so they have been changed. And we'll leave the fix flag on there as well. And so let's do something that we can't fix with Prettier. I mean, so if I just added white space somewhere, then right, the -- fix is going to fix it. But let's look at our rules, ESlint, and let's add a rule. So like one rule that I like to add is this no console, and we'll set that to error. So basically, if somebody were to put in a console log and leap for debugging or something, and it'll treat it as an error. So it shows me in VS Code this isn't something that -- fix is going to remove for me. So let's try to git add, git commit. So what happened? It ran ESlint. This is from the pre-commit hook, and it failed. Right. So this is a handy way to prevent you and your teammates from accidentally committing something even locally that that is going to fail a commit. And it even tells you here, you can do. You can provide a -- no verify to bypass. Not recommended, but you might have a case where you don't care. You've got to commit it locally. Maybe you're going to fix it later, whatever. So you can always pass the no verify flag to bypass it. Also noticed when I ran a git status, a new file showed up here, ESlint cache. So that's a file that we don't want to commit to source control. Something that because we gave the pre-commit hook, we gave it the -- cache flag. So it's going to add that file, and we just need to ignore that as well. And that does it for setting up ESlint and Prettier. The next step, we'll look at refactoring the folder structure, introducing a source folder so we can kind of organize things inside of our Expo app. I made a couple changes to the app component, just removed some text and added this ball component that I created. It's not really, it's just a ball, a view shaped like a ball. And what I want to do is I want to I wanted to introduce the source folder, but I also want to wire up absolute imports. So what absolute imports are going to help us kind of manage things, so we don't have to have a bunch of import statements that are relative like this, where you're going up 3 folders and components ball, and you start refactoring things around it. It just, I guess this is just one of those things that gets really annoying. So what we'd rather have is something like a tilde where that specifies the root, and so from the root it's always maybe components ball, or and or so let's just start making changes on how we really want this to be. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a source folder. Oops, not there, but let's just make it here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my entire components folder into there. I may move my assets into source. Let's see. It's interesting. Should have. Let me just do it in Finder. Somehow my assets got moved into there. I want it under the source. So now in source we have components. Just failing at dragging and dropping. There we go. Assets, components. App I'm going to leave at the root, but everything else, every other JavaScript component we introduce we'll put inside of the source folder. And if we need to create new folders, siblings to components, we'll do that, and we'll see how we're going to wire that up. But generally, I think I prefer having the source folder for most of my things, and then I'll have some configuration, JSON package, JSON, any like rc.config type files still will be in the root. So that's going to probably break some things. Oh, well, it looks like VS Code kind of refactored it, but it's still relative imports. That's fine. So let's see. One thing that we're going to also want to do is we're going to need to tell the app.json where everything is. App.json is a file Expo uses to handle some different settings for you, but also it's mainly used when you're targeting iOS and Android, and we need to make sure that these paths, there's some absolute paths in here that now we've moved assets under source, so we're gonna have to put that there everywhere we see it. See if that is maybe it. We'll see. So the other thing, so that's kind of just moving things around, and so what I'm going to do now is install some dev dependencies. The Babel plugin module resolver, that's what's really going to help us with the absolute imports, and some presets for TypeScript and this ESlint. This last one, ESlint import resolver alias, is going to help us keep ESlint happy with our absolute imports that we're going to introduce here. So let me go ahead and start installing those. And let's look at while that's done, let's look at our Babel config. Gonna close this, get some more space here. So what we need to do here is we've got Babel presets expo. We need to add the Babel preset TypeScript here, and let's do that. Let's add some plugins. going to copy and paste. Let's see. So we're going to set up this alias, this tilde alias to our .source folder, our source and our root, and it should be able to resolve any extensions with a TSX extension, and that might be it. Let me see. So let's just see. So if I go to app, and let's say instead of source, let's just say tilde. You know what I might need to do is, since I've made those changes, I probably need to restart Webpack build server. So just canceled that, ran yarn web. There we go. It's resolving in VS Code. Another thing, sometimes when you make changes at that package level, sometimes you have to tell TypeScript to restart the TypeScript server when you make a change like that. Okay. Oh, okay, good. So it's still, there's one more thing I probably need to change. There's got to be something in the TS config probably. Oh, you know what? Well, sometimes TypeScript tells you you're wrong. Sometimes TypeScript's wrong. Sometimes you're wrong. In this case, I think what we need to do is go to our TypeScript config, and we're going to have to set up. We're going to have to let TypeScript know what we've done here. So we're going to set the paths tilde wildcard to our star source wildcard. Let's see if that doesn't save that, and let's go back to our app. There we go, it went away. So this pretty much sums up what I would think is the bare minimum for me when I set up a new expo project. You know, setting up expo, Prettier, absolute imports with TypeScript. This is a pretty good starting point. I do recommend you go through the ESlint config, look at the rules, add custom rules, change your Prettier config to things that work good for you and your team. I'll post a link to this repository in the show notes, and I will I'll fill up the ESlint RC with some more configuration that I like to use in some of my projects if you want to take a peek at that. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful, helps you get started bootstrapping a new expo application.